Now, Florida has been ranked #1 in higher education for many years now. You don't always hear that in some of the popular media, but that's just a reality. We are #1 unequivocally of all 50 states for lowest tuition and fees, which is really important because higher education has gone up way too much across the country, particularly private universities. You shouldn't have to mortgage your entire life's future just to be able to obtain higher education, and so we've put our money where our mouth is on that. We're also #2 for 2-year graduation rate and #4 for 4-year graduation rate. We believe in providing a high-quality education, but at an affordable price, and we want degrees and pathways to lead to students being able to do well in their future endeavors. We have not had any tuition increases in the state of Florida for 10 years, and that's the lowest tuition in the country. Florida was recently ranked #1 for attracting and developing talent. Part of that is workforce education. Part of that is we've had more economic opportunities in Florida than in many places in the country, particularly since COVID-19. And we've really embraced the idea that we want our higher education system to reflect the best interests of the state of Florida. It's our view that when the taxpayers are funding these institutions, that we as Floridians and we as taxpayers have every right to insist that they are following a mission that is consistent with the best interests of our people and our state. You don't just get to take taxpayer dollars and do whatever the heck you want to do and think that that's somehow okay. So what we've done last year, probably more than anyone's done in a long time, and we're going to exceed it here today, but last year, Senate Bill 744 provided really significant reforms for higher education. First, the bill dismantled the monopoly accreditation agencies had on the entire higher education system. We are going to be doing different accrediting bodies. We're also working with other states to create some new accrediting bodies. You know, people sometimes wonder, why is the universities doing this, doing that? Seems like they're pursuing more of an agenda than actually trying to just focus on academics. And sometimes that's just a deliberate choice. But sometimes those are choices that are being conditioned based on the accrediting bodies. They're telling you you have to do this, or somehow you lose your accreditation, even though it has very little to do with the traditional academic mission. And so we think that that monopoly is something that's outdated, and we think injecting competition into the accreditation regime is absolutely essential. The bill last year also brought accountability for tenured faculty. We now have all tenured professors must undergo review every 5 years and can be let go for poor performance. And so I think that corrects some of the incentives. Once you have the tenure, thinking you have a job for life. Well, no, I think you got to continue to perform. And I think if you talk to people that have been involved in higher education, they will tell you all the kind of the most significant dead weight expense in a university is unproductive tenured faculty. And so Florida has an opportunity to address that. And then we also increase the ability to transition from a state college to a state university. We're proud of our state colleges. We think they're fulfilling an important mission, and we want people to be able to, if they so choose, use that as a springboard into our state university system. So that was a really big deal. That was leading the country in a variety of ways, but we wanted to do more, and so that's what we're here today to talk about and here to bring to fruition. So the first bill that I'll be signing is SB 266, and what this does is reorient our universities back to their traditional mission, and part of that traditional mission is to treat people as individuals, not to try to divvy them up based on any type of superficial characteristics. We're going to elevate merit and achievement above identification with certain groups. And in order to do that, we had to look at this new concept, relatively new concept, called diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I didn't know much. I mean, this is something relatively recent. I mean, Chris Ruvo can talk about when this really started to percolate. I think it had probably been there a few years ago, but then kind of the post-BLM rioting and the George Floyd summer of 2020, I think you saw it really take off. And on its face, I mean, when I see diversity, I think different viewpoints. Have a robust academic discussion in the university. Isn't that what they're for? In reality, what this concept of DEI has been is to attempt to impose orthodoxy on the university, and not even necessarily in the classroom, but through the administrative apparatus of the university itself, and that manifests itself in a number of different ways, but this has basically been used as a veneer to impose an ideological agenda, and that is wrong. And in fact, if you look at the way this has actually been implemented across the country, DEI is better viewed as standing for discrimination, exclusion, and indoctrination, and that has no place in our public institutions. And so this bill says the whole experiment with DEI is coming to an end in the state of Florida. We are eliminating the DEI programs. We are going to treat people as individuals. We're not going to treat people as members of groups. And it's also wrong how this has been implemented. It has been discriminatory, but it's also the fact that the more emphasis you place on something like a DEI, the less time emphasis you do, because of opportunity costs, on recruiting great teachers, on promoting things like STEM courses or other great courses that the students could really learn about from taking. So I think it's been a distraction from the core mission of the university, and I think this is a needed corrective. We're also making a determination in this bill to say, okay, you have tax dollars, even though we put a lot of funding into New College in this current year, and we'll talk a little bit about that, but I mean, we've really shown a commitment to higher education with funding, and that's important. But at the end of the day, you can't be all things to all people. You got to make decisions about what do you want to do. Do you want a medical school somewhere, or do you want something else? And so what this bill is saying is, some of these niche subjects like critical race theory, other types of DEI-infused courses and majors, Florida's getting out of that game. If you want to do things like gender ideology, go to Berkeley, go to some of these other places. That's fine. It's fine. And there's nothing, if that's what you want to do, there's nothing wrong with that per se. But for us, with our tax dollars, we want to focus on the classical mission of what a university is supposed to be. We don't want to be diverted into a lot of these niche subjects that are heavily politicized. We want to focus on the basics. And I think what you've seen as these types of majors and courses, first of all, how employable are you with some of these majors? I mean, really, it's not a good academic choice in terms of being able to be employable. That's one of the reasons I think this whole student loan thing, universities should be on the hook for the student loans. If that were the case, they would make sure that their curriculum was really fit to be productive for the students when they graduated. They wouldn't have the luxury of doing a lot of this stuff if they were on the hook. Instead, they're perfectly happy for someone to go to school for 5 or 6 years, take out huge amounts of loans, get a degree that's not worth the paper it's printed on. The university doesn't suffer. In fact, the university has benefited from that because they've gotten more tuition money. So we need to change those incentives. But as it stands now, we are going to have traditional education. We want courses and majors that have high return on investment. And we think that that's something that's very, very important.